Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Ayush. This is lecture number 6. In this lecture, we are going to be learning about functions and recursion. So, firstly, we will be seeing what is function. After that, we are going to be learning about what is recursion. So, we will be learning this bit by bit. So, coming to the first topic, what are functions? Right. So, as in the previous lecture, I have said about many things about function that length is a function, length, print is a function. So, in this series, in this lecture, we are going to be learning about what are they, what does function means, how does function works, and how to write function in our code. And also, we will be doing some questions regarding that. Same with recursion too, right? So coming to functions. So what are functions in Python? So it's a block of statement that perform a specific task. So what does this means? It's a block of statement that performs some specific task. And how to write function? How to write function? You have to write def over here. So what is def? It defines a function. What is def? It defines a function. And you have to write your function name after that and your anything which is a variable or something. You have to define the function, right? And you have to do some works, right? For addition, you have to add those two number and return that addition, right? And you have to, right? So this is the first step to write a function, and the next step would be you have to call that function. So for calling that function, you have to call by its name. So here the name of the function would be function name, right? And we have to call that function name with our argument we are passing it. For example, if I want to sum any two numbers, so in here I would be writing a and b. I would be right. So for example, in this case, def, it's a function definition, and the name function name is sum, and the inside two variables are a and b. So what I'm going to do in this program is I'm going to add these two numbers. So let's take this as a variable. Let's add those two and put the value of the sum into s, and we will be returning the s. And if I want to call this function, what I will do is I would just write sum bracket. I will assign those two parameters, the arguments, right? So a would be equal to 2 and b will be equal to 3, and I will print the sum. Let's write this code. So basically, without writing function, how would I print this two statement? So what I would do is I would assign the value as a equal to 2 and b equal to 3. Let's take I would c as c equal to like a plus b, and I would print c. This is what I would do in normal case. And if I want to write this program once again, same as once again, but I have to change, I will be changing the value, like it has 4, let's take this as 3, let's take it as 9. So in this case, I'm writing these many steps to print two digits. What if I'm telling that there is some easy way, that is using functions? So using function, what you can do is you can just call this function. I will write this code. You have to just call the function and you have to assign the argument value. Just you have to do that, right? The main program would be done in the main function. Let's do this. So let's define the function by def. Let's name the function as calculate sum because we are adding two name to this. Let's take this as a and b. Now we would be summing the value as a plus b, and what I would do is I would print the sum, print the sum, and return, return sum. Right. So this is my main code over here. And if you're guys thinking about why I wrote return sum, that's your wish, right? Because like return sum, you have to write in some of the code because you know we'll stay in a safe side over here. Why? Because if I'm using loop over here, it would be running continuously. It will be showing the result infinite time, right? While writing return over here, it would be returning you the just the sum. For example, here I am not using the loop. That's why you can or you may write this. That's your wish. But you are using loop, for example, for loop or something while loop. You have to return the sum or any product, right? That's why I'm writing sum over here. And now the code is done. Just have to do is have to call that and assign the value. Rest all things has been done. The printing has been done. Just have to call that and assign the arguments. So calculate sum. Let's go with 5 comma 7. Same as calculate sum. Let's go with 6 comma 7. Let's run this code. 12 and 13 is the sum, right? And if I want to change it in future, same I can do. I can all just have to remember the name of the function that I'm using and just have to put the argument value, right? So this is how function works. So like this is some basic things, right? So we have seen how does it works, right? Also, if you want to write returners, that's your wish. Just you have to write is print s, then it would be printing it. Also, rather than doing this, what I can also do is same define the function first. Let's take calculate sum a comma b. Now I would use return a plus b because this is some simple question, that's why I'm directly doing it. Return a plus b is done. Now I would be doing a sum. I would be taking sum as calculate sum a plus b, sorry, 1 comma 2. I'm assigning the value and I will print this, print sum. I can also do this, also the first method as you wish, right? So maybe this would be easier, and in future I would be doing with this method because it's more understandable rather than this one. This is short one, but for understanding we need some long ass method, right? Now coming to this part, let's do one question. That would be we have to average or average, we have to find the average of three numbers using function. So whatever we have learned from here, let's implement it. First I would define the function by def. I would give the name as calculate average and the average of three numbers. So let's take a comma b comma c. Now I would be doing average. Average equal to how to find the average, that is bracket a plus b plus c divided by 3, right? And I would be printing the value, print average, and if you want you can just write that as return average. That's your wish. If you want, maybe you should write this as a to become a good coder, right? And this is done. Now just have to call the name and assign the arguments. Calculate average. Let's take the average of 6 7 6 7 6 7. right? Let's take one more. Let's take the average of uh, something like 88 comma 88 comma, let's take some different numbers, 45 comma 23. Let's take the average, and before running it can give you in floating, right? So don't worry about that. Yeah, it is giving you in floating values. That's your wish. Let's suppose, let's take this as 6. Yeah, it has given you in floating values, right? So don't worry about that. That's how function works, right? Now this is how you can get an average of three numbers using function, right? Also in future, if I want to find more average, just have to remember is the function name. I have to call the function name, and I would be assigning you the value. I would be assigning the value, and that's it. Just you have to do that. Rest of things has been done in my function code, right? This is how function is very useful for writing a long code, and you want to, find the three average or move, calculating sum or some other shit, right? So this is done. Now functions in Python. Okay, so in function there are two types of function, that is built-in function. We have seen built-in function, right? For example, print, length, type, range. We have seen that in our previous videos, in our previous lectures. And next is user-defined function. So I can't use, so I may use print as my function name. That's your wish. But what if I'm assigning the function name? For example, in this case, you have seen that I'm assigning the function name over here, right? Python is not assigning the function name. I'm assigning it. That's why that's called user defined function, and built-in function are by Python itself, that is print, length, type and range. Okay, now coming to some good example over here, right? So it's not related to the topic, but it's related to the Python, right? So what if I want to write my name with space? What I would do? Print Ayush Mohan. I would do this if I want to get space in my name, right? What if I'm not writing this, and in next case I'm writing Mohan? If I would run, there would be a big space over here. I just want one space like this, like this. Take this as a referral. I want my name as this, but it's coming in next line. So in this case, what I would do is I would, okay, why I'm telling you this, because in question that is coming up, we have to use this. That's why learn the basics, right? So for this, what I would do is I would write comma. I would be using end equal to double quotes and the space. Let's run this. My name has been shown by just doing comma and the space. Let's suppose in this space, let's take at the rate over here. Let's run the code, and in between my code, there's the at the rate, right? Let's take space. Let's run this normal, right? So this is something which I have to tell you, and this thing is done. Now user defined function is being done. Okay, now coming to user defined function, let's define this function def. Let's calculate the product prod of, let's suppose, a comma b. Now print A multiply by B and return same. Return A multiply B. If you want, you can assign A multiply by to C and return C. That's your wish. And I would call this calculate product and boom. So this code won't get worked, right? Why? Okay, wait. Let's run this code. Let's see what will be the output be here. See, call prompt missing two required positional arguments A and B. Right? We have to assign the value over here. But in user defined function, what we can do, we can assign it in here. And what we can do is we can just call the function and this would get be printed, right? Multiplied of two digits has been done. Let's suppose we are taking A as nothing and B as 2 and we are assigning here over here is 2. Let's run the code 4. Why? Because the A has been directly assigned the value of 2. Right. Right. In the same case, let's take this as 1 and let's take B as nothing. Will this code work? No, this won't get work. Same thing, right? It don't even it shows an error, right? A parameter default follows parameter with so syntax error over here is parameter without a default follows parameter with a default. Okay, what does this mean? Okay, so in A it has already been assigned to 1, but here A has been assigned to and B is nothing. That's why. What if I am doing here is comma 2 and I'm removing that 2 from there? Still it's a error, right? You can't do this in Python, right? Not in every code, not even in Python, right? So this is something in user defined function that I would let you know, guys. This thing has been done. Now some default parameters that I'm being told you right now. These things, right? These are some default parameters that I'm already assigning. So okay, assigning a default value to parameter which is used with no argument is passed, right? In this case, I have not assigned any values, so that's why I'm assigning as a default value. Let the value of A and B be this only. I'm not gonna change in future whatever the numbers gonna be, right? So for that, I would be using default arguments. Like you may assign for permanently. Also, you can change it. Now, let's practice some questions so that functions would be cleared, right? These are some good questions we would be doing, and after that, we would be moving to recursion. What are recursion, right? So let us practice some question. So print length of a list. Okay, list is a parameter. So let's make a list and let's print the list using functions. Right, interesting question. You have to, you have to get to know about many other things about this. So let's take a list that is states and how to make a list. I've told you by bracket, square bracket. Let's take the name of the states as Kerala, UP, MP. Also, let's take some more states. Goa. Right. So these are some states. Let's take one more. For example, names. Let's say some names over here. For example, John Pork. Let's go with some more names like my name, Ayush Mohan. Let's go with one more name, Hitler. Right. So these are some names, and I want to get to know about the length of these. Let's take, okay, this thing is fine. Okay, let's write the function and let's print the length of these two list, right? So for doing that, I have to define the function. How I can define the function? By using def. Okay, what is this? Def. I would like to give the name as print length. So why I'm doing like this is I'm using similar type of name is to understand the code. Like in future, if someone is reading my code, he should understand that without even looking to the question, he should know, yeah, it's printing the length of the list. So that's why I'm using the name simple to, in future, same thing. If someone is reading, he should know very easily. Print length. Now let's call this as list. Let's print the let's print the length of the string, length of this list, and I would like to call this. For calling, what I would do is I would just write print length of my states. Let's run this code. I hope it runs. Okay, there's some ob object of type has no length. Object of type has no length. Okay, understood. I've assigned here. That's fine. Boom. Let's run this code. It's a list, right? Because I'm using this as a list. That's why. Mm, okay, lists. Okay, what is wrong here? I've state name print list. Okay, yeah, the list has been printed, and I want to know the length of that. That's why for this I would be using the length as my function. Uh, Boom, and oh, right now it should be 4. Yeah. For other things, for like for names, I would just write here that is names. Names. Let's run this. The name is 3. Yeah. So this is how you can get some length of a list using function, right? Okay, so let's decode this code. What I've done, first I've created two lists, right? Using the square bracket with proper indentation. And now we have defined that, and I've assigned a variable name, function name, sorry, that is print length, and I've said the name, assigned the argument as list, and I would print the length of the list. Okay, that is some logic over here. After that, I have to call that, and I have to get the length of something, that is for state. For example, name. If I am adding future some more length, I would just write the name of the and I would name that variable. This is how you can get length of the list. Okay, okay. To write the element of a list in a single line, Okay, for assigning, okay, using function. Using function, I have to assign the values of a list in a single line. So, for example, this is some list. Okay, okay. I've defined the function. The name has been done. Now here, what I would do is I would use a for loop. Why I'm using for loop? Because rather than what I would do is, what if I would print the zeroth index, the first index, the second index? For that, I'm using for loop. Rather than just writing print 0, that is the index, print square bracket 1, rather than doing that, it would take, more time and the code is not proper. That's not a good way to write. So what if I'm going to be using for loop over here? After the one index has been printed, it should get added and it should get printed. It should get print the next item in the list. So I'm using a for loop for items. Let's assign items in list. For items in list, print the items, comma, and I want proper spacing. That's why I'm using end over here. I said what does the end does. Okay, so this is the code and let's call this print length of, let's suppose, names. Let's run this code. First of all, let's clear this up. Let's run this code. So yeah, with proper spacing, it has came. Now, yeah, with proper spacing, everything has been done. Let's suppose I'm adding over here one comma so that the name are good to go. Yeah, now it's good to go. Right. So this is how you can print items from a list with proper spacing or whatever you want to fill. Right. Now, coming to the third question, find the factorial of n. N is a parameter. Okay, let's suppose we are taking n from the user and we are doing like that. So, how to find the factorial of n using a function? What I would do is, first of all, same, I will define the function. Let's call this as calculates. Okay. Calculate fact as my this thing. Let's take n. Now, for this, let's assign factorial as 1. Let's use a for loop for I in range 1 comma n plus 1, and I would 1 comma n plus 1 and factorial is multiply equal to I, and I would print this factorial. I've printed the factorial and after that I would call this. Let's take factorial of 5. Okay, now what is wrong? Okay, now the thing should be fine. So yeah, the factorial of 5 is 120. Okay, in here, why I'm getting 1, 2, 6? That's because of proper indentation, right? Yeah. Factorial of 5 is 120. Let's take the factorial of 9. Let's take some factorial of 10, and let us take one more, last one, factorial of 6, 7. Now let's run this. Okay, the factorial of 5 is 120. Okay, it's going. Okay, so for 6, 7, it's some big ass shit over here. Okay, now this thing is done. This question is being done. Now, second question. Oh, okay, very interesting one. Okay, you have to convert USD to INR. How to do that? For this, same thing. Let's define this. You have to convert the USD to INR, US dollars to the Indian rupees. So let's define the function and let's name this as converter. Convert. Okay, let's take some short forms. Let's take the USD value. We have assigned USD value. Now we have to do the conversion over here. Okay, so I don't know about current value of USD. So I think it would be 95 or 94 or 93. I don't know. So USD value, that is going to be, sorry, it's going to be IND value. IND value going to be USD value multiply by, I guess, 95. Let's take 95. I don't know really. I think it should be 95 right now. Okay, forget about that. It has been done, and I would print this. Print. Let's take USD value, comma USD, boom, USD, comma INR, IND value, comma INR. This thing has been done. Now I would call the function and I would just assign 1 rupees. Let's convert 6, 7. Let's convert $100 to INR. So, okay, let's do this. Let's convert. So $1 is 95 rupees. $67 is around 6365 rupees. $100 is around 9500 rupees. This thing has been done right. This is how you can convert US dollars to Indian rupees using function. Right now, coming to recursion. So functions has been done, like it's completed. Let's do some more recursion and practice some question. Recursion is easy, but it's little bit confusing, right? So what are recursion? So when a function call itself, so in function, what we are calling is that in function we are calling the function, right? But in recursion, the function call itself, right? That is what recursion means. Now, for example, this is a code where you can print from some numbers to 1 in decreasing order, right? So we have assigned def and show n. If the n is equal to 0, it would return, like, and we would be printing n and show n minus 1, right? Let's write this code. Let's write this code. That is def show n if n is equal to 0, then it should return and print and show n minus 1. I would call this show. Let's take 5. Let's run this code and 5 to 1. Right. Let's take if n as 0. Let's take n as 0. Now it has returned. It has returned what? Nothing. Let's suppose return 0 as 0. Still nothing, right? So this is a code of how you can print from reverse in descending order. You can print. Right. Now here's some good question that is we have to use recursion to find the factorial. So in other case, what we have done, we haven't used for else statement over there. Here we are using, right? There we are just assigning the factorial as 1 and we are using for loop for I in range 1 comma n plus 1 and we are doing calculation that is factorial into n minus 1 like factorial into equal to I and we are printing that factorial. Okay, in this case, in this recursion, what we are going to be doing is we know that if the factorial of the 0 and 1 is always 1, so we are already assigning those and we are doing the return part same thing. Let's make this factorial of n. We are not assigning anything over here because it's recursion. If n is equal to 0 and or if n is equal to 1, what I want to return 1. Else I would be printing factorial, oh sorry, n multiplied by factorial of n minus 1. Okay, this new line of semicolon. Okay, wait. Uh, oh wait, what is wrong here? Return 1. Okay, okay, so fine. Factorial return. Okay, sorry, we are not printing this out. We are returning in the value, right? Return this thing, and after that, we would be calling, or else let's print directly. Print factorial of 5. Let's print this. Factorial of 5 is 120, right? So this is how you can find factorial using recursion. This code is done. Now let's let's read the last question first of all. Write a recursion function to print all elements in the pin, in the list. I've done that question just as a function in case. Just I have to use if or else if the list is 0 empty, print 0, or else you can directly copy paste that one function 1. Let's take the last question of our lecture, that is write a recursive function to calculate the sum of first n natural number, right, using recursion, right? So let us do this. sum of, let's suppose, n. Now if if the sum of 0 is what? Of course, it's gonna be 0. Return 0, right? Else, let's suppose it's an other digit. So what I would be returning here? It would get returning the sum of n minus 1 multiply by n. Oh, sorry, plus n. Sorry, multiply by n. Yeah, sorry, sum. Yeah, we are doing sum, right? And lastly, I would print this sum of, let's suppose, 100. It should be 50-50. Let's see. Yeah, it's 50-50-50. Yeah. So this is how you can print the sum of n natural numbers, right? Using recursion. These are some questions. So let's take one more question. Let's suppose these are some two questions. Let's take some interesting question, that is, okay, I want to check the number that is given by the user, if that is an odd or even, using recursion. So same thing we have seen in if else case. Same thing you have to do here, but using recursion. Easy, right? How you can do this? Check numbers. So this I have assigned the value. Now I would be directly writing the if else condition over here. If the number is divisible by 2 and if the remainder we are getting is 0, then it should get print that it is an the number comma is even number, right? Else it should print the number is odd. And let's take the number input from the user. Input, enter your number, and let's call this, we're calling this check numbers of numbers. Okay, number. Okay, let's print this. Let's take 4. So 4 is an even number. Let's take, if the number is 9, that is odd, right? So this is how you can know if a given number is odd number or even number using recursion, right? So now this question has been done. So I think function and recursion would be clear to everybody. So function, so let's revise first. Function we have done, how to get the sum we have done, what are the two types of functions, built-in and user defined, default arguments we have seen with some examples. We have done these type of questions, most importantly to convert USD to NIR. Same with, let's take one question, suppose we have to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. You can also do that question, right? And what are recursion? A function calling itself is a recursion. We have seen some questions. We have seen two more interesting questions and one last interesting question, that is how to find if a number is or positive or means odd or even using this thing. Also, you can do one more question, that is how if I want to get a number that is positive. So for that, what I would do, if the number is greater than 0, if the number is greater than 0, print the number is positive. If else, it's of course it's negative, right? So the same thing, just you have to do is, let's do this then. It's take if the number is greater than 0, it is, let's suppose it is positive. It is positive, else it's negative. Right, let's run the code. Let's take the number as 7. Of course, it's a positive number. Let's take some number that is -4. Now that is some negative numbers. So it's showing an error. Okay, you can't take the negative numbers over here. Right. Okay, so this is how it works. Right. Yeah. This thing is being done. Okay, so I hope everything has been understood, everything is being cleared. You have enjoyed this video number lecture number 6. Let us meet you guys in video number 7. Probably it's gonna be file input and output, or I guess it's gonna be oops. So oops is very interesting. It's gonna be very interesting topic. So I think I would start file input and output. After that, we are gonna be learning about the hard stuff. Hope everybody has enjoyed. Thank you, and let's meet again.